Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
Gilpin County history is Black history. Those were the words reporter Mindy Leary said to me when we spoke about a series of editorials she's been working on for Black History Month. Some of the most influential Black artists of the 20th century have deep ties with Gilpin County, thanks to a little-known piece of land called Lincoln Hills. You'll hear all about it in my conversation with Mindy on today's show. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast. I'm Tyler Hickman. Today, we're checking in on your local government, and after that, we'll be diving into Mindy's research about Gilpin County's ties to artists like Langston Hughes, Duke Ellington, and Zora Neale Hurston, and how Lincoln Hills became a leisure destination and safe haven for Black Americans in Colorado during segregation. Before we get into it, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Eldora Mountain. Skip the epic traffic on I-70 and head to Eldora for good vibes all season long. Eldora is your go-to spot for non-stop winter fun, with great local skiing and riding, plus slopeside DJs and an après music series. Don't miss the Full Moon Ski Tour, the Timbers Rail Jam, or the Morning Uphill Grind. Get all the details and check out weekly events at eldora.com. See you on the mountain. Now, here are today's news bites. After 4 months and 4 days, the state of Colorado has approved a plan for testing asbestos at the wreckage from the Caribou Shopping Village fire, paving the way for demolition to finally begin. Nederland Mayor Billy Giblin shared the news at the February 17th Board of Trustees meeting. If the tests come up negative, the pathway to demolition will be relatively smooth. But if asbestos is detected, it could add potentially 3 to 6 months to the timeline and up to $1 million in costs. Also, the town is embracing a grant opportunity to potentially bring just under $1 million in funding from the state's Local Impact Accelerator grant for improvements. The cash would help revamp bus stops, build a walkway connecting downtown to the middle and high school, and ease the planning process for accessory dwelling units, smaller dwelling units, sometimes called granny flats, that are often referenced as a tool used to combat housing shortages. Crucially, the grant takes a policy before project approach, meaning the town must meet certain regulatory standards to unlock the funding. This means going above and beyond the state's ADU requirements, like coming up with pre-approved construction plans and providing technical assistance to homeowners who want to build one on their property. The town expects to hear about the award in April. And finally, visitors to Very Nice Brewing in Black Hawk were pinching tails and sucking heads of crawfish, that is, this past weekend at Lon Yop Cafe's Crawfish Boil. As a former East Coaster, I always enjoy seeing people struggle to find their way inside of a shellfish. You haven't truly lived until you've put a napkin over a boiled crab and smashed it with a hammer. But I have to say, judging by the photos, it looks like Gilpin's Mardi Gras celebration had some real Cajun pros digging out meat at the annual festival. So I'll withhold my judgment on this one. That's all for today's news. As always, pick up a copy of this week's paper or head to the mtnear.com to read these stories and so much more. Now, for today's feature segment. I caught up with Gilpin County senior reporter Mindy Leary to chat about the historical features she's been writing for Black History Month, about the many Black artists who found themselves at Lincoln Hills in the early 20th century. Unsurprisingly, the story is closely tied to segregation. It's shocking, though, how rich the history is and how few people know about it today. Here's a bit of our conversation. I want to welcome Mindy Leary onto the show to talk to us about a series that she's been reporting throughout February for Black History Month. Welcome, Mindy.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to dig into the stories that you've been writing. They've been really, really great. The Langston Hughes one was awesome. Before we get started here, if you can just give me like a quick background on who you are and what you do for the Mountaineer, that would be great.
I am the Gilpin County senior reporter. So I report on all of the government meetings, the breaking news, the cultural events, and the happenings around Gilpin County.
It's always a pleasure to read your stories. So when I heard that you were writing about this, I got really excited because I don't really know anything about Lincoln Hills. So I thought it would be great to have you on the show and explain to me and our listeners what Lincoln Hills is, what the history is there. So if you could just start by giving us an idea of what this place is.
So Lincoln Hills is a parcel of land that was developed in 1925 for Black Americans to basically live, to work, to play, and to have a refuge away from segregation. It began, in the 20s, and around that same time, there was a lot of cultural movement. And I wanted to really focus in on some of the characters that visited Lincoln Hills, especially those that are related to writing and music.
Yeah, and give us like a geographic idea. Where exactly is Lincoln Hills?
The Lincoln Hills is in the northeastern corner of Gilpin County, and it's located off of South Beaver Creek Road. So it's kind of close to Coal Creek Canyon Drive. And you can access it by going down South Boulder Creek and then down another road called Pactolus Lake Road.
What about Lincoln Hills made you want to write these stories? What gave you the initial idea?
Well, it's because I've been reporting in the county for many years. I've come across Lincoln Hills and people from the organization called Lincoln Hills Cares. Lincoln Hills Cares is committed to preserving the cultural identity and history of that area. And they also have a lot of ties to the Central City Opera. So in my reporting, I've come across several mentions and even just, interactions with the organization. And I'd like to highlight it, obviously, to show that Gilpin history is also Black history.
For a frame of reference on time here, this was during segregation, correct? Early 20th century into the mid 20th century?
Yes, that's correct. It was established in 1925, but it continued to flourish for many decades. And it was basically known as the only vacation resort west of the Mississippi River that catered to African Americans.
And so my understanding, too, is that it was founded by African Americans, but you said that there is a little bit of a, discrepancy in the history. Could you just kind of tell us a bit about that?
So the founders are Edwin C. Regnier, Robert E. Ewalt, and Edmund J. McMahon. The history sometimes also maybe records that there were some other investors that may or may not have been African American. But for such a large-scale development, and at the time, it would make sense if someone else was involved, that wasn't African American, just to maybe get them the voice and respect they needed. It obviously became a huge refuge for those Blacks that were in Denver and did not have places to stay. So because of segregation, any of the hotels in Denver, there was only one or two that would allow African Americans to even rent a room. So a lot of times, artists from the Five Points district in Denver would take a train up to Gilpin County, and there was a stop. Some people say they had to jump off the train, that myth has been kind of debunked when I took a tour of Lincoln Hills, but there was a stop. And this is where Black Americans could come almost at any time of night and be fed, have meals, and have lodging. Whereas in the city of Denver, all of the rooms would be taken.
Was it like primarily Colorado based artists, or was it people from like around the country?
I would say it was people from around the country, but one of the main pillars of Lincoln Hills is a girls' camp, Camp Nizoni. It was an African-American girls' camp where they could learn how to do crafts, learn mountain skills, and attend some schooling during the summer. And it was really unique and the only one of its kind at the time. So Camp Nizoni, one of the buildings, still stands today, and you can go and kind of see it from a distance. They're working on rehabilitating it to make it a little more public ready.
And I'm guessing that a lot of that facet of Lincoln Hills was probably also created because there weren't camps where Black families could send their kids to.
Exactly. That and the buying and selling of land. So parcels of Lincoln Hills were sold to different African Americans who were looking to move to this area to own land. One of those was a man by the name of Aubrey Winks. And what he did was he was basically almost an inventor, really, and he built a lodge there. He did a lot of technological things for his time in getting the place up and running. So the Winks Lodge is named after him, and they call it the Winks Panorama Lodge. And it's a very large building that was a boarding house, and it has a dinner bell attached to the side of it, and they would cook fried chicken and have community meals. And outside of that building, they have a fire pit with chairs and very large and beautiful pine trees. And this was a place where they would gather and have, community discussions. They would share poetry. And the artists that stayed there probably got a lot of inspiration from being in the natural environment. South Boulder Creek runs through there. And of course, it's surrounded by, forested areas.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting in your story about Langston Hughes was it seemed like there isn't a ton of information or certain things that point to like, hey, he drew inspiration from Lincoln Hills, but you kind of connected the dots there a little bit for us and said that it's possible he drew something from the natural scenery at Lincoln Hills to create his art.
Absolutely. He talked a lot about rivers. And like I mentioned, South Boulder Creek running through there, it's really not a creek. It's a full-blown river. And during his stay, I'm sure that he walked along the river and sat amongst the trees and had a little bit of respite from the outside world where he could be alone with his thoughts and reflect.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the kind of space that would be ideal for any artist to go and feel immersed in a natural environment and draw inspiration from that. In your process, it sounds like you went to visit and were on a tour, and you've likely done a lot of research to this because you seem very, very knowledgeable about it. It's impressive. So is there anything that you've come across in your reporting here that's like really, really surprised or shocked you?
I mean, it was all fairly shocking, to be honest. Just like anyone else who doesn't know anything about Lincoln Hills, when I first came across it, I thought to myself, wow, this is something I didn't know existed here. This is unique, very unique. One of the things that I would have loved to have witnessed is the gathering of the artists, the cultural significance of that at the time, with artists like Duke Ellington and Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and also Lena Horne. So they would get together and most likely play music. And there are some buildings there that lend themselves well to looking like they have seen some good times. So I would say most surprising to me is just the richness of the cultural significance in such a small county that existed at that time that tied it into a more national type of stage.
Yeah, it's kind of blown me away going through the list of names that spent time at Lincoln Hills. I mean, it's incredible. You just like gave a laundry list of some of the most influential artists of the 20th century. And I didn't know anything about this. Do like Gilpin County residents know about Lincoln Hills? Do they know the history there? Is this something that's been kind of like washed away by time?
It's been having a quiet resurgence, I think. I think that there was a lot of renovations that were necessary. So I think that maybe some things have fallen into disrepair and that it wasn't open as much for tours as it is now. As far as the tours go, you can visit their website and kind of see what they're offering. As far as individual tours go, I'm not so sure if you can just walk into there, but if you hit one of their events, then you can definitely go and explore the property.
Great. Are there any other recommendations you have for listeners who might want to learn more, or maybe just certain artists who've written about it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we also have Count Basie and Billy Eckstein. What I want to talk about before I get off the podcast is Lena Horne and her honeymoon cabin. So there's a little one-room cabin. I would suggest wearing some hiking shoes. And you basically kind of go off of the Pactolus Road. It's a dirt road. And you go up a little ways past where the Camp Nozzoni building is, and you curve into a forested area. And on the right side there's a very small one-room cabin that they call the honeymoon cabin. And they did that probably because Lena Horne wanted her privacy. That's definitely should be on anyone's list. And to look into what Lena Horne did as an activist is really special for me. So basically, she was an artist, an actress at the time. And when she was doing Hollywood films and different acting jobs, they often would only let African Americans play to a segregated audience, meaning blacks were on one side and whites were on another. And Lena Horne stood up against that. And she said, I will no longer perform in front of segregated audiences. Now, this did not gain her any friends in Hollywood, and it very much made her career a lot more difficult. But she was an activist for Black rights and for an equal partnership and setting. So, she most likely came to Lincoln Hills, especially to escape scrutiny and to have a place of retreat away from prying eyes, considering how popular she was. And just that magical place of her cabin, I think, is definitely a very important note. And that article will be out in our February 26th Mountaineer edition.
So you've written about Langston Hughes. I know Duke Ellington is coming
this week. Yes, it will be out on Thursday, the 19th.
I think we have a lot to look forward to and learning more about the artists. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we take off here?
Just that Black History Month should stand to everyone as a reminder that it was not that long ago that Black Americans were treated in such ways that we would find reprehensible, and that the way that we can avoid that in the future is by remembering our past.
Very, very well said there. I really appreciate you coming on the pod today, Mindy, and I'm excited to get the word out about Lincoln Hills. Go read the stories. They're fantastic. We'll drop the dates and some links for stuff that's already published in the show notes. And we hope you learn a little bit more. Thanks, Mindy.
Thank you, Tyler. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye. That's all for today's show. Thanks to Mindy for taking the time out of her very busy reporter schedule to help us get the word out about her project. Please go check out her stories. They're eye-opening, well-researched, and you'll almost certainly learn something new. If you liked today's show, please like, subscribe, and share it around. It's a huge help as we grow our audience. It's not your job to keep your neighbors and friends informed. It's ours. So send them our way. And if you want to get in touch, drop me a line at tyler@themountainear.com. I always love to hear from you. This is the Mountaineer Podcast. I'm Tyler Hickman. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.